Hello and welcome to video lecture series in political science. Today we will start discussing chapter 4 titled as Alternative Centers of Power from your class 12th textbook Contemporary World Politics. For understanding, we will divide this chapter into 6 parts. In these 6 parts, we will discuss about the alternative centers of power. What do we mean by alternative centers of power? And what are the various examples that can be called as the alternative centers of emerging powers? We will discuss about the European Union, ASEAN, China and India, and we will also discuss India's relationship with the rest of the 3. So, let us begin with the European Union. As you know about the nature of the world politics after the Second World War, you know that after the end of bipolarity, the US has emerged as a hegemon. We have discussed US hegemony in the previous chapter. Now, over the years, the US has dominated the world politics. It has dominated the world economy, it has dominated the world culturally and ideologically. But at the same time, world over, there has also been a rise of other nations and regional organizations, which can potentially challenge the US hegemony. These powers are emerging strong in specific areas, and they are called as, or they are seen as, alternative centers of power. Now, they might not have been able to dominate in all the spheres the way US has been dominating culturally, militarily, ideologically, economically. Yet, all these new centers or alternative centers of power are gradually becoming forces and powers to reckon with. They are leaving their mark in the global political scene, in global economic scene and also culturally and ideologically. One such alternative center of power is the European Union. Now, when we talk about European Union, one obvious question that comes to our mind that what is the difference between Europe and the European Union? Before we start discussing the emergence of European Union as an alternative center of power, let us understand the difference between Europe and the European Union. Europe is a geographical entity. Europe is one of the 7 continents in the world comprising of westernmost peninsula of the Eurasia landmass. It is a continent consisting of many countries or nations. Whereas the EU is a political entity, it is a regional organization. The EU, now instead of European Union, we will say EU. The EU is a union of 28 countries of the continent called as Europe, which are bound together through various treaties. It is a kind of association or agreement between members of the union to cooperate together on the issues of economics and politics. The continent of Europe consists of many countries, but all of them are not members of the EU like Switzerland or Norway, whereas Europe consists of many more nations including the member states of the EU as well. Let us discuss about the EU in detail. What is this European Union? The European Union is a union of 28 member states. That is, 28 countries are part of this union that they have formed together. It covers 1.7 million square miles of area. It has more than 500 million people. It is producing almost 1/3 of world's gross national product. And people in EU speak dozens of languages. They are bound together by a desire to promote certain common values such as values of peace, democracy, prosperity, stability and rule of law. Now, the EU is one of the most successful experiments in the field of economic and political integration in the world so far in the history. It is a community of law and values which is based on the idea of cooperation and solidarity among the member states. Now, remember that EU is not a federation like the United States of America, nor it is a state that aims to replace the existing states. Say Germany, France, UK are member states, but EU does not intend to replace the sovereignty of these member states, nor it is an organization for cooperation between governments like the United Nations. But interestingly, the EU is much more than any other international organization. EU is in fact unique in many ways. Never before in the history of humankind, independent and sovereign countries have voluntarily agreed to set up a common institution to which they can surrender some degree of their sovereignty, that is independence, so that the decisions on issues or matters of common interest to all of them can be made democratically at a higher level. And these decisions are then applicable to the citizens of all the member states directly who are part of the Union. The European Union embraces the fundamental values of freedom of speech and freedom of religion, and these values are shared by all the member states, which have a variety of cultures, languages, traditions and religion. The member states have a basic agreement over values like, say, democracy is the best form of government. They believe in societies that encourage pluralistic political thought, that is, giving freedom to people to decide about their own political destiny. They support free market economies. Free market economies are economies where economic development and growth are driven by the private sector through open competition and where government facilitates the rule of economic organization. The member states of the European Union also believe that prosperous and rich countries have an obligation to help the underdeveloped or less developed regions and countries in the world. The member states of the European Union value living together in peace, and they also believe in promoting these principles globally, that is, establishment of democracy, peace and stability all over the world. According to scholar Pascal Fontaine, before becoming a real political objective, the idea of uniting Europe was just a dream in the minds of philosophers and visionaries. Victor Hugo, for example, was inspired by humanistic ideals, and he had imagined a peaceful United States of Europe long ago. But the dream of United States of Europe, like United States of America, was shattered by two devastating world wars that had ravaged the continent during the first half of the 20th century. Europe, after the end of Second World War, was divided between Eastern and Western Bloc, as we have already discussed. The Eastern Alliance was formed by the Warsaw Pact and the Western Alliance was formed through NATO. Through NATO, the United States had established a collective security structure where the member states of the NATO were bound to help each other in case of attack on any one of them. The US also offered aid for the reconstruction of Europe that was ruined by the Second World War. And in 1948, the Organization of European Economic Cooperation, that is OEEC, was established under the Marshall Plan to channel the aid coming from America to Western European countries. Now, people who had resisted totalitarianism like Nazism and fascism during the war, they were determined strongly to put an end to the international hatred and rivalry in Europe, and they wanted to create conditions for lasting peace and stability. So, what happened between 1945 and 1950? A couple of strong-willed statesmen and leaders such as Robert Schuman, Jean Monnet, Konrad Adenauer, Gasperi and Winston Churchill, all of them set out to motivate Europeans to enter in a new era of cooperation with each other. Their plan was that based upon the shared interest, new structures would be created in Western Europe, and these new structures will be based upon certain treaties and agreements guaranteeing the rule of law and equality between all the countries which are going to be the member states of this union or those who are going to be members of the union or association. Robert Schuman, he was a French political minister. He took an idea originally conceived by Jean Monnet, and on 9th of May 1950 he proposed for establishing a European Coal and Steel Community, which is also called as ECSC. Countries which had once fought against each other ruthlessly agreed to bring production of coal and steel under a common high authority. Now, this was a very practical step and also symbolic way to show unity. The raw materials that have been used for feeding the hunger of the war earlier in 2 world wars was now being turned into instrument of development, reconciliation and peace. Instead of mass murder now, they would be used for development of masses and fuel economic growth. So, on 9th of May 1950, the Schuman Declaration proposed the establishment of ECSC, European Coal and Steel Community, which became reality with the Treaty of Paris of 18th April 1951. This treaty put in place a common market in coal and steel between the 6 founding member countries of the Union. What were these 6 countries? Belgium, the Frederick Republic of Germany, which was West Germany at that point of time, France, Italy, Luxembourg and the Netherlands. This was the first step of coming closer and to foster economic cooperation between member states. Now, the idea that the countries who trade with one another become economically interdependent and they are more likely to avoid war with each other or avoid conflict with each other was now getting materialized. The aim in the aftermath of the Second World War was to secure peace at any cost, peace between Europe's victorious and vanquished nations, like the victory of the Allied forces and defeat of the Axis forces, and bring all of them together as equals, not somebody who has lost the war or somebody who has won the war, but bringing all of them together as equals, cooperating with each other, being part of the shared institutions. The member countries of OEEC began to cooperate on economic issues, and later the Council of Europe was established in 1949. The establishment of Council of Europe was an important step in the direction of political cooperation among European countries. The 6 founding members then decided to form European Atomic Energy Community, which is also called as Euratom, and the European Economic Community, that is EEC. Euratom and EEC were established by the treaties of Rome on 25th of March 1957. Look at the beauty, how they are establishing treaties and how they are establishing certain institutions to cooperate within various areas now one by one. And on 1st of July 1968, custom duties between the 6 founding members were also abolished, and they developed common policies on trade and agriculture, which came into practice during the 1960s. Now, interestingly, the first enlargement of the EU took place in 1973. You may be thinking that we are talking about 6 founding members and now EU is a group of or a union of 28 member states. So, when did all these countries join? We will discuss all of them sequentially. But the first enlargement took place in 1973 when Denmark, Ireland and United Kingdom joined the European Community. The number of members grew from 6 to 9 with these 3 new entering. But then you may be questioning that who can join the EU? Who can become the member of the European Union? Now, the European Union has set high standards for membership. Nobody can easily become member of the Union. They have certain standards or criteria. The European Union is open to any European country which is geographically located on the continent called as Europe that fulfills the democratic, political and economic criteria of the membership. And this criteria is called as Copenhagen criteria. Now, what does this criteria state? This is an accession criteria that you have to fulfill this criteria in order to get accession to the or membership of the EU. The Copenhagen criteria is a set of essential conditions that all candidate countries must satisfy to become a member state. Who is a candidate country? The countries which are applying for the membership of the EU. These are called as candidate countries, and those who are already members are called as member state. Now, what is Copenhagen criteria? It is divided into certain parts. The first is the political criteria. The political criteria demands stability of institutions guaranteeing democracy in the nation. It wants the rule of law, human rights and respect for and protection of minorities within the nation. The second criteria is the economic criteria, which requires a functioning market economy and the capacity of the nation to cope with the competition and market forces. That is, the society must integrate itself with the global economic system. The third criteria is about the administrative and institutional capacity to effectively implement the acquis. Acquis means the rules and regulations of the European Union, and the ability to take an obligation of membership. That is, if in case the European Union prescribes a way of functioning, the administrative and institutional setup must be able to do that. Now, the EU reserves the right to decide when a candidate country, that is an applicant, has met the criteria and when the EU is ready to accept the country as a new member. So, briefly stating, candidate countries must have stable democratic governments, they must respect rule of law, they should have respect for minorities and human rights, they must have a functioning market economy and the ability to make obligations of the EU membership. Now, over the years successive enlargements have happened, and the most recent one happened in 2013, and when Croatia became 28th member of the European Union, and the membership over the period of 60 years, it has grown from 6 to 28 member countries. And in 2010, 9 other countries are there that are negotiating memberships or are at different stages of preparing for the entry into the Union. Now, let us briefly look at the chronology of enlargement. This is the map of the Union in 1957, showing in blue color the 6 member states, the founding member states, which are Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, Luxembourg and Netherlands. The first enlargement that happened in 1973, which included Denmark, Ireland and UK. 3 countries joined and the number became 9. In 1981, Greece also joined, taking the number up to 10. In 1986, Spain and Portugal joined, taking the number to total 12. In 1995, Austria, Finland and Sweden joined, taking the number to 15. And a massive expansion enlargement happened during 2004 when 10 countries joined as member states of the Union, because they were earlier the candidate countries, they had applied for it. And most of these countries of the Central and Eastern Europe. These countries were Czech Republic, Estonia, Cyprus, Latvia, Lithuania, Hungary, Malta, Poland, Slovakia and Slovenia. In 2004, Romania and Bulgaria joined, taking the number to 27, and in 2013, Croatia joined as the 28th member of the Union. Now, what you see in this particular map, the yellow ones are the potential candidate countries, which includes Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo, and the ones which are shown in light blue color are the candidate countries, and these are Albania, Iceland, Serbia, Turkey, Macedonia and Montenegro. Over the years, the European Union has evolved from a small group of 6 countries to a total number of 28 member states, with more candidate countries and potential members standing in the queue. There is certainly an attraction among Central and Eastern European countries who will gain by being member of the European Union economically, politically and socially. So, to conclude, let us summarize what we discussed in this lecture. Today we discussed about the alternative centers of power. We took the example of the European Union. While discussing it, we discussed the difference between Europe and the European Union, how the idea of the EU was conceived. We discussed about the establishment of European Coal and Steel Community, that was the first step towards fostering economic cooperation. We discussed about the Copenhagen criteria that lays down certain accession criteria to the membership of the EU. And we discussed the chronology of the enlargement of the EU from 6 member states to 28 member states over the years. In the next part of this chapter, we will discuss about various institutions of the EU that help EU to function. And we will also discuss about some of the problems and challenges faced by the European Union. Till then, you can enjoy reading this part of the chapter. Thank you.